thank the public, for those who stayed. It is a long process, and you're to be commended for your participation in the public process and the democratic process of putting your thoughts forward and trying to be heard. So you're to be congratulated, and those that left should be congratulated too. I'll keep it very brief. It is late. I do want to start with, I want to thank Mr. Phillips. I think he did an outstanding job for your community in working with Fair Share Housing and getting the number where he got. I think he did a very good job for your community. The first thing I want to ask is, we now know that Toll Brothers is the contract purchaser because of, Mr. Phillips of the conflict, so we all know that the conflict, they're the purchaser. Who came up with the idea, the plan for 115 units?
It was developed in conjunction with myself, the township, some back and forth with professionals from the contract purchaser. This was a number that made some sense in the context of the settlement agreement. That's where we ended up.
Do you know that, if in your knowledge of your conversations with the developer or the contract purchaser or the governing body, do they have the ability to close on that property without Morristown?
I don't know that. I'm not aware of the situation with their real estate transaction that's outside of the scope of what I've discussed.
Does anybody in the governing body know whether they can close on the property without the neighboring community?
We don't know.
So the reason why I asked the question is this actual feasible development? If the neighboring community, which is our community, obviously we don't have any agreements with Toll Brothers, don't agree to anything, and obviously a big chunk of the properties in Morristown, including more than half the building. If we're not on board, how can they close? And if they can't close, how is it a feasible development that counts towards your fair share housing? It's just you don't have to answer me. I just think that it's something you have to think about, because if it doesn't close, how can you vote on it without knowing it? And then my last question is, it's getting late, so I had a lot of questions, but it's late. If Toll Brothers, these are legitimate questions, if Toll Brothers number is 115 for their purchase price to develop 115 units on that large parcel, the whole parcel, not just half, if their number is 115, then we would like to talk to our governing body, our administration, like to talk to your administration, because 115 units on that whole site would be an outstanding development and very little density for the community. It would be a much better development, and we'd be open to talk about that if that's the number. But if it's not the number, and Toll Brothers is 115 on one side, and then they think that once you guys pass this, then they're going to come to Morristown and say, well, we got to take the building down. What can we build on your side? We have a problem. So how do we know those answers, and how can you move forward on passing this redevelopment plan without knowing those answers? I just want to throw it out there. You guys can vote the way you see fit, but those are legitimate questions for our community to know whether we have a stake in whether this closes or not. And if it can't close without Morristown, and we deem that we're going to build a park, and it's not going to be feasible for Toll Brothers to just build on half that property because the purchase price is, just say, in excess of 10 million or 12 million, I don't think 115 units is going to meet their price for their profit margin. I'm not an expert in development, but just some questions to think about that you can debate. I think if those answers are unknown, I think you need to go back to the contract purchaser and ask them what the knowns are. And if the answer is we need Morristown, I think we need to come back to the table, and I do have a councilman here, and we're willing to talk to you. But if 115 is the number for that parcel, and it's the whole parcel, if they want to build 115 units, and they can close on that deal, then we would like to talk to you, because I think 115 would be very amenable to the township and to the town. A site that big, 150 units, would be a very low dense development, and you get your affordable housing units. Thank you.